Hello everyone. So we are here in continuation of our first unit for international business management. Now I'm going to take this ahead regarding the types of organization structures. In the previous video, we had already discussed what is an organization structure, what are the essentials of organization structure. Now we need to discuss the various other types of organization structures which we have not been able to cover in the previous unit. So we will be starting with the global area structure, strategic business unit structure, global matrix structure, and global network structure. The two, that is global functional structure and global product division structure, have been covered in the previous video. If you are not aware about these two, you may refer to the first video for the same. Now starting with the global area structure, for this we move to the concerned slide now. Yes, this one. Now when we're talking about the global area structure, in this basically what happens is you have the structure defined regionally, as in you have a regional headquarters which is established in different parts of the world. If you refer to this diagram also, which is mentioned on the next slide, you will observe that you have general manager western region, general manager eastern region, general manager southern region, and general manager northern region. Now what do we have is we have these major classification done on region wise basis, right? Now this particular general manager eastern region is responsible for managing the products, markets, functions of areas which lie under this category, right? So basically what we mean is, if for example this general manager eastern region, just for your understanding, name it as for example general manager north america operations, right? Now further this can be divided into in the form of vice president united states operations, vice president canada operations, vice president mexico operations. So basically we have a regional head, and under that regional head we have classifications based on specific regions, which can be USA, Canada, and Mexico, right? Now what are they supposed to do? These people who are managing this particular operations are the one who will be responsible for that particular region, right? Now if I talk about the grouping, how does these grouping actually happens? The basis of these grouping is region, right? As the name of the structure defines, the global area structure, right? The division is precisely done on the basis of region. If we go back to the structures which we have done previously, like the one which was your global product division structure, there the division was done on the premises of your product. Over here the division is done on the premises of area. Now if I talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of this particular organization structure, so firstly we will talk about the advantages. Now what happens, because you have specific people who are going to cater to a specific region, so they will be more able to concentrate on the requirements of the local needs of those people, right? What will happen now? General manager eastern region is responsible for east part of the world. Now he will have countries under him which lie in this particular region. They might have similar taste patterns and etc., or there might be certain differences also. So in that scenario he will be able to counter that and produce things accordingly. So that is something you can have flexibility in that regard. The second advantage which we will have is it helps the firm to respond quickly to changes in different regions. Now, if there's something happening in terms of any external dynamic environment affecting the eastern part of the world in a very positive or in an adverse manner, what would happen eventually? This concerned person who's heading the eastern part of the world will be able to take a quick decision, because he is the one who's accountable for it, unlike if it would have been a product or any other kind of an organization structure. Now also one additional and one more major advantage this structure has is in the form of your responsibility. The responsibility for sales and profits can be easily fixed. If anything happens, good, bad, neutral, in the eastern part of the world, that is something which has to be attributed to this particular concerned official, right? If anything wrong happens, for example, in Northern America region, right? Northern America in itself comprises of a lot of countries, right? So in that particular context, you will have uh, the person accountable that yes, something went wrong in Canada, something went wrong in Mexico, likewise, right? So the firm is gradually able to adapt itself to various types of the political and the legal challenges also that might come in its way. Now when we're talking about the disadvantages are like the duplication of facilities and personnel in each region, right? So what is happening over here is like if you see the diagram also, you have a general manager western region, eastern region, and likewise, right? Under this you will have somebody who's heading the specific cities in these regions, right? And this particular thing is being followed for all the major regions, so there is duplication being happening. Next we have is the disadvantages. Coordination of worldwide operations may become difficult because you kind of tend to be narrowing down your horizon because you are more concerned about your region and not the other world subsidiaries, how are they operating. So uniformity across operations is something which is like a challenge to be maintained. Now, when I talk about the suitability of this particular global area structure, these structures are generally followed by food, beverage, and consumer good firms. Like you can talk about Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. These companies like these generally tend to have that because they have narrower product lines, but they are doing or running their operations across the world. So the product lines are narrow, but the geographical spread which they have is quite huge, right? So I hope we are clear about the global area structure as of now, right? The advantages and disadvantages. The next which we intend to move is our strategic business unit structure. Now, what does it talks about? Strategic business unit structure, also known as an SBU structure, right? Now in this we have grouping of related businesses which have some strategic elements in common. So basically what happens is there's an SBU head who's assigned the authority and responsibility for management of SBUs. So it is basically, you can say that rather than the corporate headquarter trying to get control or do or trying to have a control over all the subsidiaries in a direct manner, they employ somebody in between who's known as a chief executive officer who's heading the SBUs, right? Rather than a main unit being handled by the headquarters, you have different SBUs. Those SBUs are further reporting to a particular individual, and that particular individual is further then reporting to the headquarters. So it is kind of a one step which is being added in comparison to what would have happened otherwise. Now, what is the advantage of this particularly? See, if the if your organization, which is headquartered in India for that reason, tries to manage the various subsidiaries which are running in different parts of the world directly, it's not going to be easy for them. So what do is they basically try to find out similarities. They find out similarities in terms of these particular set of units have similar kind of businesses, right? They are tapping on similar kind of opportunities, so they club it into one SBU, that is strategic business unit. Similarly, they identify similarities in the other area, the opportunities, similar opportunities in the other area, and they club up into the strategic business unit 2. Now this SB1, SBU1 and this SBU2 actually report to a certain executive officer, This executive officer further is somebody who's accountable to the headquarters. So understand this from this perspective, that it's kind of a one more hierarchical level which is added to ensure that the communication which is done between the SBUs and the headquarters is done in a clear manner. Now, when I'm talking about the advantages of this SBU structure, right, it is kind of reducing the burden of the headquarters for sure, right? It helps us in better coordination between the divisions with similar products. Also, it helps us to allocate the resources in a better manner in terms of highest opportunities for growth. I'm inclined towards putting my resources, deploying my resources towards those kind of business units which are going to give me more prospectable opportunities. Now, if I talk about the disadvantages precisely, the disadvantages would be in terms of that the headquarter is at a distant from the SBUs, because there's one more channel hierarchy which is being handled. So there's a distance factor is quite huge. Distance we do not mean by kilometers, the kind of reporting distance we are talking about, right? The conflicts among the SBUs can be a matter of concern, right? They might not be very willing to share resources, which would become an issue otherwise, right? So these are the major advantages and disadvantages in context to your strategic business unit structure. Now, the next type of structure which we have is your global matrix structure. Now, this global matrix structure is one of the most famous and one of the most practiced, I can say, organizational structure which we see these days. I'm not saying that this is the only organizational structure that is being followed, but yes, generally, because it is also known as a hybrid organizational structure design. So it is basically formulated by combining two different organization structures. That is the reason of it becoming more practically logically relevant in today's context. Now, if you see the diagram which is given to you in the next slide, you can see that you have this organization structure vertically also and horizontally also, because in the previous structures which we have studied so far, we have seen an organization structure most probably from a vertical angle and not from a horizontal angle, right? But when we're talking about the global matrix structure, we need to see this diagram both from a vertical perspective also and from a horizontal perspective also. So from the vertical perspective, if we look, we have the division done on the basis of your functions. You have the first one as vice president production, the next one as vice president purchase, the next one as vice president administration, right? So basically the first level of distinction which is done vertically is on the basis of functions. Like if these names mentioned over here are production, purchase and administration, it is not like you have to copy paste it in your exams. You can of course change it in terms of R&D, operations, finance, anything. Till the time you're quoting functions, it's absolutely fine. Now, when we're talking about the horizontal thing which is written in the form of project manager A, project manager B, C, and D, likewise, this is basically the horizontal distinction which we have. Now, what do we have in this particular structure is any one AVP, if you actually tap on to, right, you will observe that these people are receiving orders from two perspectives, right? The one is from the vice president production and the other is from the project manager A. So basically it is like this person is actually the part of the production team, right? But at regular intervals, as and when required, is also made to work under different kind of projects. And right now that particular person is working under two heads, either the production head and your project manager A. So at the same time, he is receiving orders from vice president production and project A manager. Now, This particular kind of an organization structure is heavily practiced in IT firms, because what happens generally, these IT firms are working on project basis, right? So what happens is generally they are part of a team, right? Maybe someone is into testing, someone is into coding and etc., but at regular intervals they are deployed to different projects, right? Now when we talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of this global matrix structure, so we talk about the advantages first. The first advantage which we have is the firm is able to respond very quickly to the external environmental variables, right? And if we talk about sharing of information and knowledge creation, it is quite effective because you are able to get inputs from two different heads, right? Which would even make your mind work better, and things would gradually turn out to be more effective. Also, if we talk about the costs of operations, they are reduced considerably, because what happens is generally you are working under a functional head also, and you're working under a project also. So rather than having duplication, so I mean rather than having two different individuals, as in one different person under production and one different person under project manager A, you are one person under both of them, so you are helping them reduce the cost of personnel. Now if I talk about the disadvantages of this organization structure, the conflicts and confusion that might arise are the biggest disadvantage. You at times would wonder that what deadlines do I need to follow, whose deadlines do I need to follow, whose instructions do I need to follow. So this is particularly a matter of concern. There's a lack of accountability due to overlapping responsibilities. You might tend to be confused, like whom am I actually accountable to, whose order are something which are more important to me. So that might create a confusion and a conflict kind of a situation between the functional heads and the project heads. And also, if we talk about duplication of activities, that is a concern because functions and projects are overlapping. And I hope this particular organization structure, that is the global matrix structure, is clear to you. Now next which we would proceed will be the global network structure. Now, discussing about the global network structure, to actually define it in a very formal language, I just want to quote certain lines and then I'll gradually explain it in a layman language to you people. A network structure is a form of an organization in which many functions of an MNC are contracted out to other independent firms and coordinated through the use of information technology network to operate as if they were a single corporation, right? This type of structure is often called as a virtual cooperation also, because now see, if we talk about the diagram which is there on the next slide, what do you observe? There's a company based out of New York, the headquarters are in New York, and then they are coordinating with different locations, right? So now what is happening actually for the company based out of New York, the different functions are being performed by different companies based in different locations. The designing part, the designing perspective is being looked upon by the in Germany. The distribution company is something which is based out of Singapore. So basically you have outsourced certain operations to companies which are doing excellent work in it, and it is not necessary that those companies should be there in one location only. They can be scattered and they can be present at multiple locations also, and you're communicating with them over or by using technology. That is the idea behind it. So it appears that it is one organization, but it is actually not one organization. It is multiple organizations which are working together in a manner, creating a situation of a virtual organization. Now when we're talking about the advantages, of this particular set of structure, the advantages are like this particular structure allows the firm to achieve global competitiveness, because you're picking up the right functionality and outsourcing that particular functionality to the right company based out of any part of the world, right? You're not compromising on the fact that my company is not good with the finance for that reason, I need to cater it on my own. But you feel that okay, this particular functionality is something which can be outsourced to this particular part of the world, this particular company, because you have been able to do so, right? The flexibility and motivation of the workforce is quite high. And if I talk about the disadvantages are in context to like there's a very little control from the headquarter team, so that is a point of concern. Employers might not be that loyal because see they are virtually separated, right? Uh, it's a different kind of belongingness when you people are together in one particular set of office, but this is not the case over here. So the kind of loyalty you are expecting out of these set of employees will be comparatively lower. And when we talk about the managerial skills which are quite essential on the part of the headquarters team, right, that might be something a matter of concern, right? So these are the major disadvantages and context to the global network structure. Now, just providing you a conclusion to this particular topic. See, a global firm may adopt any of the structures which we have studied so far. We have already covered these all types of structures. Now, I cannot say that functional structure is good or the product structure is good, the area structure is good, the business unit structure is good, matrix is good, or network is good. It entirely depends upon the nature of the product you're handling, the kind of manufacturing and the marketing locations you have, the various requirements you have as an organization. What is your motive? Do you want to actually prosper your product into n number of geographies, or do you want to just limit yourself to a certain part of the world? Do you want to cover the entire world with different types of products? What are the requirements of the host countries? There are n number of things which have to be catered before deciding an organization structure, right? Another factor which I've already discussed, the kind of centralization decentralization thing which you want to have. So every structure has its pros and cons. So if it is asked in the paper like which structure is the best out of them, you cannot straight away say that this is good or that is bad. You cannot be subjective in answering to it. You have to analyze the statement that is given in the question, that what are the probable points they have quoted. If they're talking about a company who's working or who's having its multiple presence, multiple product lines, then maybe product area structure would be better. So you have to identify the points of information which is given and accordingly answer the question. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Happy learning to all of you.